Less than 24 hours, Georgians will be under a shelter-in-place order.
McDonald, though, said he did not know the man was handcuffed and was trying to use his foot to pin him to the ground so he could be handcuffed.
If your friends, neighbors, or local organizations are not complying, report them to us.
Howdy, y'all, and welcome to the Free Georgia Podcast. My name is Jake Green. Thank y'all so much for joining today. If you have any questions about the Libertarian Party of Georgia, if you'd like to get involved, if you just want to know more about it, go over to lpgeorgia.com to learn all you need to know. You can also email any of us, message any of us on Twitter, Instagram, whatever. You know, we're open to chatting about what we believe in and what we're doing. One thing that we are doing in January is our 2024 convention, which is coming up January 26th through the 28th down in Conyers. Get your tickets now, $62 until October 30th, then $75 after that, and then late times is $85. You can get it up till the day before. So if you can't decide right now, if you don't know what your schedule is going to be, you can always wait to the last minute. It's just going to be $23 more. So yeah, and then we have our platform, headlines, affiliates, bylaws. What is a libertarian? We have everything on this website. So make sure to visit that if you have any questions or concerns or thoughts after today's podcast. Yeah, today I've got a very special guest joining me today. I know I just said today twice. That was stupid. He is running for the candidacy for the Libertarian Party for President of the United States. His name is Joshua Smith. Joshua Smith, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Jake. I really appreciate being here. And, I love Georgia. I got family that lives in Georgia. I spent a little bit of my childhood in Sharpsburg, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta. It was the first time I ever had to take a school bus because I'm from the big city, So yeah, I love Georgia, man. I've been to 2 or 3 Georgia conventions over the last 5 or 6 years too, man. I enjoy you guys. So
nice. When was the last time you were in Georgia recently?
2022, I think.
Okay. So
yeah,
I came convention in January, maybe.
Yes. Yeah. I know I was there in 2020 for sure.
Yeah.
And in fact, I got COVID leaving there. It was like the end of February, maybe February 28th or something like that. I flew out there and I ended up going back to California with COVID. So, but it's before any of us knew it was there. We didn't know.
Yeah,
so,
that was the very beginning of this.
Yeah, and I was traveling all over for my campaign for chairman of the Libertarian National Committee, and I was flying in and out of SFO, San Francisco Airport, every day, and there's like 5,000 people a day that travel between China and San Francisco, and I had to walk right through the international terminals and all that stuff. So yeah, I definitely had it real early.
Yeah, that'll do it. For those who don't know, because I'm sure not everybody in Georgia knows your background and everything, where are you from?
Sure. So I grew up in California. I was one of the East Bay California kids, right outside of San Francisco, Oakland to be more exact. Okay. Joined the military in 2002, right after 9/11. Decided I was going to go and protect my countrymen from the evil terrorists abroad, and but I joined the Navy because I didn't actually want to really go to war, and so, but it was funny because I ended up on the USS Constellation within less than a year of joining. We were in the Persian Gulf. George Bush declared war while we were in the Persian Gulf with Iraq, and then we were the biggest part of the shock and awe campaign, man, and it burned my heart. It really just broke me. I was so jaded because you grow up with this idea that the Middle East, right? Yeah. is like this desert, and all the wars that we're having over there, we're just bombing the desert. And you come to realize that Baghdad is a big city with children and family pets, and people get up every morning and put on their work boots and go to work just like I do, and I got to really thinking about that. What happened was in the beginning, they had these big drums of leaflets, and they were leaflets that were written in Farsi, and they had little cartoon characters on them, basically saying, "Leave your homes. We're going to start dropping bombs." And it was like right at that point that I was like, "This isn't cool. I don't like this. I don't want to be part of this anymore." And then they dropped 100 million tons of ordnance on Baghdad, and we came home and acted like nothing happened. it broke me. It really did. It jaded me to the point of where I spent the next 20 years as an anti-war activist trying to fight the regime and fight the establishment. You know, I joined Ron Paul's campaign in 2008 and worked for him in California. And then again in 2012, of course, I watched the way the Republicans treated Ron Paul and his delegates, arresting them at the door at caucuses and in places like New Orleans and locking them out and blacking him out from the media. And I knew the GOP wasn't going to serve my purpose, and my purpose was anti-war. But thankfully, Ron Paul got me interested in, Murray Rothbard and F.A. Hayek and all these great philosophers and economists of our time that taught me the philosophy and the principles of liberty. And it opened my mind. In fact, the first book I read was For a New Liberty, and it was an absolute mind blower. I never was the same. I like to liken it to a window that you open that you can't ever close again, right? Like you can never go back through that window once you've read these ideas. And so I joined the Libertarian Party first time in 2010 after the 2008 election. And I put some money towards it. I started emailing the LNC right away. Hey, what can I do to help you guys? I'm a fired up young anti-war activist. I love that you guys are the anti-war party. And nobody got back to me for 3 months. And so I stopped my donation, started doing publication stuff. We had a publication called Think Liberty that was pretty popular for a while. Mm-hmm. And then in 2016, I came back to the party to help with, the presidential election. I wasn't going to be a part of that clown show with Trump and Clinton.
Right.
And so I helped out where I could there. And then in 2017, I had liked this guy, Nick Sarwark, a lot. I was a big fan. He gave a barn burning speech in 2016. And I was like, yeah, this is what I like. Your tears are delicious and your parties will die. And so I joined back up, and then I saw him, talking all this mad crap about my libertarian heroes, people like Dave Smith and Eric July and Murray Rothbard and Ron Paul. And I'm like, anybody who hates Ron Paul and the Libertarian Party probably shouldn't be leading the Libertarian Party. And so I called all these big name libertarians that I know and was like, hey, you guys got to run against this guy. You got to run. He can't be the face of American libertarianism anymore. And they were like, you're crazy. He's the most popular chair we've had and forever. And then he's a trial lawyer and he's this and that. And so I did it. I ran against him because no one else would. And nobody knew me. Right. But I traveled to 38 states that year. I got to meet a lot of people. I got to put my finger on the pulse of the movement. I got to bring a lot of people in. In fact, from 2020 to 2022, I was the #1 Libertarian Party recruiter in the entire party. So the first 2 years I sat on the board as an at-large. I lost to Nick Sarwark. I ran again in 2020, lost to Joe Bishop Hinchman very closely, ended up as an at-large again. And then, of course, I ran for vice chair. Won it, resigned. I wasn't happy with some things on the board there. So I figured it was best for me to step away. And then when I realized there was nobody who had done these things that was running for president for our party and didn't have the following and didn't really want to put in the time and effort to go out and get us ballot access and all these really important things that the presidential candidate is tasked with, I decided I would do it. And so I put my name out there. It's kind of like a challenge, and it's really blown up, man. We got, 100-person campaign team now. We're working on state coordinators. We've started getting on some really big shows. We've been on Timcast in real life already. We're working on Patrick Bet David next, Sean Ryan. We're confident we'll get on Rogan. And these are the places that you got to go if you want to be a presidential candidate today. It's not about the mainstream media anymore. They don't get the views. They're dead. They're dead in the water. Yeah. But we've also built a great platform that's centered around, pushing back on COVID tyranny and pushing back on the anti-2A crowd and all these great things. Should you guys be crazy enough to put a libertarian in the office of president? But also we want to help candidates around the country run and take over their local school boards and take over their local sheriff's office. These are the places where you can make the most damage anyways. As a libertarian currently, none of us are going to win the federal election anytime soon. Not in 2024, certainly. Maybe if we set the stage correctly, we take some federal elections in 2028. And that's what we're here to do. We want to wake people up. It's a 50-state media tour. Should we get into the general election to tell people, hey, there's a better way than what's going on? This uniparty bipartisan crap has gotten us where we are. We're finding bipartisan support for every single bad policy that you hate right now, whether it's a spending bill, whether it's war, all of these things find bipartisan support. So why not give a third party an option? And I think that we have what it takes to wake people up to that.
Yeah, man, I completely agree. What was like your decision-making process like for deciding to actually run? Like what were the things that you weighed? Because I know like the whole campaign just to get the nomination itself, that's got to be a lot of work. And then once, if you get the nomination, you know, a whole lot can happen after that.
Sure.
So like, what was your decision-making process like?
Well, there had been a year or so where I'd already talked about maybe running for vice president should no one step up. That was the original goal. Okay, if no one else steps up for vice president, I'll run. I was hoping Dave Smith would run for president. You know, we have a Smith 2024 ticket. We go out, we spit that liberty crap the way it's supposed to be spat. We wake some people up, we get people in the movement, and in 2028 we slay. And I kind of just saw the writing on the wall that wasn't going to happen. Like there was not that, like Dave, if Dave was going to announce that he was going to run, he would have done it probably close to a year ago, right? And I got some insider info that wasn't going to happen. And so, you know, I talked to some other people and I was like, well, why don't you run? And people are like, I really don't want to run. Like, I just don't want to do it. It's going to be a hard year. Ballot access is going to be very, very hard this year. I'm already planning weekends in places like Maine and New Mexico to go and try and help with ballot access so that we can get the ballot access we need to get on at least 49 states, because we're not getting it in New York, most likely.
Right.
And so, you know, I weighed out the work. I knew it was going to be a lot of work, but the biggest, the biggest thing for me was I sat down and talked to my family. And, you know, all of my work here for the last several years has been for my family, because I want my kids to live in a freer society than what I had to live in, right? Or what everybody's living in today. And I want my grandkids to live in an even freer society. And we're never going to do that if we don't start opening these doors. So I sat down and talked to my family. Of course, my wife was pretty concerned because she had sat with me through the 2020 through 2022 national campaign that I ran all over the country, went to, you know, another 20 something states. And it was hard. It was hard for her. She knows that there's a lot of mudslinging and it's going on right now. You know, it's just a different side than I thought it would be this time, unfortunately. But she saw what we went through and she knew how hard it was on the family. So it was like more important for me to have her blessing than anybody else's, really, truly. And so we sat down, I went over it. I said, you know, this is going to be great for not just for us, but for the country. And even if we don't win, we have the opportunity to start changing some things, get people interested in things that my wife are interested in, like homeschooling and, you know, holistic healthcare and all these great things that she's into. And the reason why I fell in love with her to begin with. And she agreed with some reluctance. She agreed. And so that was probably my biggest mind changer there was, okay, if I have the support of my family to do these things, then we're going to do them. And so, yeah, man, that's where we're at. And, you know, I feel like of the candidates running, we have the most charismatic and energetic campaign. We're running with the same principles that the Revolution 2.0 was built on. And we want to bring that Ron Paul revolution to the Libertarian Party and to the presidential campaign. And that's what we're going to do.
I love it. Yeah, I imagine that candidate that didn't have the support of his wife and family probably wouldn't go very far.
It's just not smart. It's just not a smart thing. Cause I'll tell you, you got to come home after that campaign's over, you know. I have a 5 foot even Italian wife who, you know, she don't take no crap at all. And she'll let you know when she's unhappy. And so, and even, you know, and there's still times during the campaign that she's faltered a little bit and be like, you know, we have a baby coming in December. And so she's like, well, are you going to be gone? I said, no, I'll make sure that I'm, you know, at least a week or so on each side of the due date that I'm not gone. And,
right.
But I also, you know, the good thing is we live in the middle of the country. We live in Iowa, right? And so when the general kicks off and we have to make it to a lot of states, all these middle America states we can drive to, and the family can come. And so it'll be, you know, it'll be nice to have the family on the road with us and stuff too. So
heck yeah, that's great moral support and comfort and stuff while you're on the road. That's fantastic. You mentioned ballot access, which is something that's pretty important here in Georgia. Because depending on what happens in the 2024 presidential election, we might lose our ballot access here in Georgia. We have to reach a threshold of, I forget what the actual threshold is, 3 or 5%, something.
Is it 3? I thought it was 2% in Georgia. I've been looking at all the requirements. So
yeah, and so that's something that is definitely on like LP Georgia's mind at this point. So like, what can you say? Like, what's your pitch to LP Georgia delegates who might end up, you know, deciding whether or not to vote for you?
Sure. Well, look, here's the thing. We're definitely going to travel. We're definitely going to come to Georgia. I'll be at Georgia obviously for the convention. But it really, what it comes down to is, you know, are you going to be energetic and charismatic enough to talk to people where they're at? Right. and it's going to be important in every state, not just Georgia. It's going to be important in every single state around the country that we have a candidate that's powerful, that's a good speaker, that can actually open up these ideas to people in a way that they understand. Not just, we can't just be professorial about these things. We have to actually talk to these blue collar working class people. I mean, these are the middle class. These are people that are most affected by the bad policy in the country, and they're actually disappearing. I mean, the middle class is disappearing, and Georgia is a heavily middle class, blue collar state. And that's what we're running on. We're running on I'm a blue collar working class guy who's been through the same plight that everybody else has been through, the family law system, the inflation, monetary issues. And we need somebody that's going to talk to us. So I could promise that if nothing else, I'm going to talk to Georgians about the middle class woes and the plight that we're all facing. And I think that we get those, that 51% of the population that didn't vote for a presidential candidate in 2022, which in my mind means that there shouldn't be a president.
Yeah,
but
no doubt.
yeah. I mean, no to one, no to the president. But I think that we have the best platform and the best chance of speaking to the majority of really most states when it comes to the blue collar working class section of this country. That's the bread and butter of America. Those are the people that are most hurt by our federal government. And so, I promise to be that guy that talks to those people and wakes them up and hopefully gets them involved. And we're also we're gonna share our data. That's the other thing too. There's been some speculation that maybe I'm just doing this for myself and to make my platform bigger. And I will say that it's stupid if you're a candidate for president, you're not trying to make your personal platform bigger and you're using that as a knock on a presidential candidate. Right. That's stupid. That's the goal. Of course, that's the goal. Of course, you want to get a bigger platform. If you're not getting a bigger platform, you're dead in the water and you don't work. Right. But we're going to share that data, and we're looking at using 50 million Americans data to do polling. Actual polling. Will be the first presidential candidate to do a poll on that scale. All phone polls. And it's like $1,000 per million, and we're doing it. We have the money. We're raising money. We're going to have the opportunity to do that. So we're just going to be the candidate that talks to those people where they're at and makes them feel like it's time to start looking for a different way.
Yeah, that's very impressive. One thing here in Georgia, Chase Oliver's pretty well known at this point. Sure. He caused that runoff between Warnock and Walker. So, I mean, in libertarians' minds, especially here in Georgia, it seems like he would be the obvious one to steal votes away from any of the two, major candidates from the major parties. So how would you make up for the fact that he's known here, but you're not?
Sure, and it's going to be a hard hill to climb in the state of Georgia. There's no doubt about that. And let me preface this with I like Chase. I think he's a very great speaker. He's surprised me in 2 different debates now. By the way, when we were in Denver at the what's it called? It was an institute that we had a debate at, and he did really well. I was surprised, and he had some great answers too. Like obviously they're like written out, canned, like politician-y answers, but they were good. And he's a great speaker. And then he did really well in our debate in New Jersey last week as well. But I think personally, I think Chase was in the right place at the right time when he had the runoff with Warnock. I honestly think that like many other candidates could have even done better. And that's not a knock on Chase, but I think if Shane Hazel had been in that race, that split would have been much bigger, right? And so I don't have anything bad to say about Chase. I know it's a big hill that we have to climb. I think Chase has done really well in this campaign already. I'd say that a lot of people are thinking that Rechtenwald is my biggest competitor. I'm telling people it's probably Chase Oliver is my biggest competitor. He's already been traveling. He's already been doing the work. He speaks really well. But I disagree with him on some things, and some of that stuff is this child welfare going around the country, this issue that a lot of parents are very, very, very concerned with, the schooling system, this affirmative care and mutilations of children. And he's not really into the protectionist policy for those kids. And I think that will really separate ourselves from there in the race. And then, but other than that, I don't see a reason why the people of Georgia should make it this like ugly thing between me and him. It really comes down to our policies. We have differing policies, and I think that my policies will represent the people of Georgia better than his can.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. I have no interest in things getting ugly between Libertarian Party candidates. Like,
Sure.
let's keep it
It
civil.
happens though. It
Yeah.
happens, man.
Oh, it definitely happens. But we agree on like 99% of things. Let's not.
I
let
want to be
the
very
1%.
clear. I like Chase. I had dinner with Chase in Georgia,
Yeah.
at the last convention. He's a
Mhm.
nice guy, man. He's very smart, and I think that he's a good candidate. I really do. I'm not going to be super bummed. I do have some fundamental issues that will work out in debates,
Mhm.
but I think the guy's pretty great for the most part. So
Nice. Let's say you get the nomination. What is going to be your focus as far as messaging?
I have several big like platform points that I want to put out front. Of course, I talk more about Title 4D of the Social Security Act than any other candidate running right now. I think that it's completely torn apart the family system in the United States. And in fact, if you look at the statistics, when Gerald Ford signed Title 4D of the Social Security Act into law in 1975, the amount of fatherless homes has more than tenfold. And I mean, it's an undeniable stat. We're talking 87% of homeless and runaway youths are from a fatherless home. 78% of all violent youth offenders sitting in jail today are from a fatherless home. 80-something% of all school dropouts are from a fatherless home. And all of this stuff has come about since 1975 when this stuff was signed into law. And I have to make family a big talking point of this campaign. And I think, there's a lot of people in the country that are feeling this right now and don't understand where it's coming from. Everybody wants to point their fingers at the education system. I agree. Department of Education's got to go. We've got to get back to a absolute freedom of choice when it comes to how to educate your children. Very important to me. It's got to be up there. But it's not the main goal. It's not the main issue. We're talking about split homes. The most important part of a child's development is father and mother, period. And right now we have a system in America that treats typically 94.7% of the time the father like a visitor in their child's life so that they can take money from them. And what happens is, I'll explain Title 4D a little bit. So what it means is, for every 66 cents that a state spends on child support enforcement and the likes, the federal government gives them $1 back. So we're paying the states. Seriously. We're paying the states to separate families, treat a father, or sometimes very, very rarely a mother, like the visitor in their child's life. We criminalize them if they fall on hard times entirely. In fact, we put people in jail quite a bit for child support issues if they can't pay. And we take a parent out of the home all the time. And we make it much easier for a woman to make the decision to split up the home as well, or a father sometimes, very rarely. And this has got to be an issue that more presidential candidates talk about, because it's a stroke of a pen. It's an act. We can get rid of it with an executive order. It doesn't need to be there anymore. And in fact, the president signed it into law. So it's got to go right away. It's a very, very important issue that I don't think enough presidential candidates talk about. But another thing too is like I said, using the bully pulpit and being the candidate that goes around the country, does shows like this and talks to people about how they can run for school board very easily and probably win on about 287 votes in some of these places, and take control of the local school. And you have the opportunity as a candidate, a libertarian candidate, or any kind of candidate that you want to run as, to get into these positions and nullify federal government laws. These laws, these edicts don't mean anything to state and local localities when there's a government there that says, no, we're not going to follow those laws. They can't. Constitutionally, the 10th Amendment has made it so that the state has the opportunity to tell the federal government to get lost, kick rocks. I mean, all the way up to arresting federal agents in your state if they show up. And so, we've got to wake people up to that too. We've got to get more people running as candidates that are tired and sick of this crap. And then, of course, the self-defense laws that the federal government and states are constantly trying to push. We're talking a lot about, these federal agencies, the FBI, the ATF, the CIA, all these things that have grown so entirely out of the scope of what they were meant to do, that now the FBI is infiltrating and investigating Catholic groups and going to school board meetings and calling soccer moms that are mad about their children's education domestic terrorists. So we've got to get rid of 70% of that workforce completely out the door, take what's left, send as many of them around the country to smaller localities as we can, to mail rooms, to maintenance departments. And then whatever we have left is going to be so small that they only have time to focus on things like interstate serial killers and child sex trafficking and stuff like that. So, because, you know, at that point, we'll find out if we actually need a federal police force, you know. Right. And if we don't, we have the opportunity to say, look, we've cut this workforce down to about 12% of what it used to be. They're not doing anything. We don't need them. Listen, I'm urging Congress to abolish them, because it's got to be an act of law. That's a lot of these libertarian candidates will run around and tell you, oh, we're going to abolish the ATF first day in office, and we're going to abolish this and abolish that. You don't have the power to do that as president. It's an act of law. It takes an act of law to get rid of them through Congress. But also another thing, the AUMF. This is something that I like to talk about. Of course, the story of our time right now is World War III. It's got to be one of our biggest issues as well. China and Russia. We've been running Russia right into the arms of China for a long time. They're becoming a superpower, working with BRICS now, trying to circumvent the whole OPEC dollar and all this stuff, which is, it's good. The OPEC dollar sucks. It's got to go away too at some point, right? But Taiwan is a tripwire for war with China. We can totally make these things here, these chips here. We mine enough cobalt and silica here to make them. We actually make the robots that build these wafers here, and then ship them over there for them to build them over there. 12% of them are made here. Semiconductors are made here in the United States already. People don't know that. And places like AMD in Austin, Texas could do them tomorrow. So it's a tripwire to war with Russia. There's no reason for us to go and defend Taiwan. Of course, we've got to stop sending money to Ukraine. All this stuff is insane. But a lot of these things have grown out of control because of the institution of the AUMF, right? The authorization of use of military force, which has circumvented the federal declaration of war, right? We haven't had a real war since World War II. And this is how we got into Iraq and Afghanistan, all these things. And I talk about this with a lot of people. They're like, oh, well, Congress said it was okay. I said, no, they okayed a spending bill. The AUMF is a spending bill. Right. They never declared war, and our Constitution requires that the government declares a war if we're going to go to war. So I would immediately get rid of the AUMF. I can sign that right out. It's just a spending bill. I can veto it. I can put the executive order in, and then I would tell Congress. I would sign an executive order telling Congress that if you want a war, you must do your constitutional duty and declare a war federally. That way, you're beholden to your constituents around the country, right? That way, when you put your name on the paper and said, yes, I wanted to go to war with Russia or China, your constituency who doesn't want war, because we're tired of war. Let's be honest. The vast majority of Americans are just tired of the endless wars. Then they get to see that on paper instead of the president just using this constant open-ended bill to drop bombs on people. And now you have the opportunity to see who your representative really is, and it's going to make them scared for their jobs. And so we've got to do these things. These are all really important things. They got to be at the forefront of every campaign, with also the knowledge that we got to build campaign ballot and debate access for our party, and also that we have to get more candidates to run. And so those are all going to be the biggest focuses of the campaign. There's a lot of other stuff on there too that, if you go to my website, joshuasmith2024.com, you'll see I got all my platforms written out there. We're also working on, there it is. We're also working on some other platform planks. Of course, we want a very policy specific platform for healthcare and immigration and all these really hard issues to navigate. So we've got a great policy team, probably 50 people in the policy team already. I'll be working with Michael Bolden some on nullification issues, and some other great people too. Scott Horton, I call Scott Horton as much as I can to talk about foreign policy, and
probably smart move.
He's the best, man. There's nobody better in my opinion. I think that he's the absolute greatest of all time when it comes to foreign policy. I've never heard anybody be able to push back on Scott Horton in an effective manner. So why would I want to go to anybody else?
I've also never heard somebody make something so dry and potentially boring so interesting and
exciting. Yeah, I mean, it's because Scott gets that anger, it's that fire, right? And that's the same thing I'm talking about with this campaign. Like, I'm just a blue collar working class guy who's been able to build a pretty good sized national platform and get into some pretty big media. And the reason is because I'm fiery, I'm passionate. I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I don't think I'm the smartest guy in the room, and there's some days where I'm like, man, how am I going to do this? I'm not smart enough to do this. It's that self-doubt problem, right? But I've been successful because I'm passionate, fiery. I believe in this cause. I'm doing this because I believe in these ideas. I'm doing this because I want a more freer life for my children and my grandchildren and my family and my friends, my community. And so I really have that fire behind me to get these things done. And we need a candidate that's going to do that. If we don't, we're going to have another 2016 where we have the two worst candidates of our lifetime, and we have this huge opportunity to set the stage for 2020, and boom, we got Joe Jorgensen. Like, I don't want to do that. I want to be the guy that sets the stage for 2028 for an even more exciting, much smarter, like harder working candidate to come in and actually make a dent in those federal elections. And I think that we have the best case to set that stage today.
I love it, man. Yeah, super stoked to see where your campaign goes. Tell people where to find you, how to support you, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, of course. Please go to joshuasmith2024.com. There's several things you can do on the website. You can sign up for the volunteer web form. We'll get you into a chat where you can work with the rest of the team. It's a great team. It's the most organic, grassroots, like hardworking team I've ever seen for a presidential candidate in this party. They're amazing. We got a great campaign manager. Sean Kennedy is killing it, absolutely killing it right now. I wouldn't be half the man I am today without him. You can also sign up for the email list to get updates about the about all the campaign inner workings and outer workings and events and all those things. My good friend Zachary Varnell does a lot of those emails for us. So if you see Zach in Georgia, you tell him that I love him to death. He's a great dude. And of course, you can donate. We can't run without money. That's just how it works. We're up against the financial juggernauts and the Leviathan of the federal government. Mm-hmm. These guys are making hundreds of millions of dollars on these campaigns and then rolling them over into PACs and, keep the money flowing. And we can't compete at all without dollars. It's just how it works. The good thing, though, about a third-party candidate is our dollars basically spend 3 to 1 to that of the uniparty. Our money goes much, much, much further. We typically have to pay much less for votes. At the end of the day, that's how it works. These guys are paying $3.75 to $15 per vote. We're paying, pennies on the dollar. So
right.
That's how it works. We need that. We have to have that. You can also watch all our videos, media. There's an events calendar up there, so you know where we'll be. We'll be in Dallas, Texas next week for the Texas State Fair. Nice. I know that, the week after that, I think we'll be in Jacksonville, Florida. Of course, we're going to Syracuse, New York on the 10th, Charleston, South Carolina on the 11th of November. That's where the big convention debate will be that we had to actually qualify for. So we got the qualifications for it. So all the stuff's there on the website. Of course, follow me on Twitter at Joshua at Large. I'm always at war with everybody there though. So just be ready. Be ready.
What date are you going to be in Dallas? Because I'm actually going to Dallas next week.
16th, 17th, I think, Monday, Tuesday.
Oh, dang. Okay.
Yeah. So I'll be at the Texas State Fair on the 16th, and then I'm still in Dallas on the 17th. I think my flight leaves at like 5 p.m. that evening, so I'll probably find something to do. We are in the works to set up an event on the night of the 16th somewhere around Dallas to have a meet and greet, and you guys can have libations and we'll have dinner and all that stuff and talk about my campaign and whatever questions you have. So that'll be interesting.
Interesting. Well, if I'm free, I'm definitely going to try to make it.
Yeah, let me know, man. Just hit me up on Twitter and or wherever, email, whatever.
Absolutely. Well, y'all go to joshuasmith2024.com to learn more about his campaign. You can also go to lpgeorgia.com to learn more about Libertarian Party of Georgia if you're new to the party or interested in learning more. So that'll do it for this week, y'all. Make sure to tune in to Liberty Libations Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, and come back next week for more free Georgia podcast. Joshua, thanks, buddy.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on, Jake.
Absolutely.